Welcome, my fellow shop rats. Today we're back on the Stitches Challenger, and we're going to be continuing to work on this rear valance piece and getting ready to install the quarter panel on that side. We do a lot of hands-on stuff here that isn't just about a 70 Challenger, but about any project that you might be working on. Hopefully the things you take away from this episode, you can take right out into your shop or garage and apply to what you're doing. Now, let's just stop talking about it and let's get into it. I'm Mike, and this is My Car's Shop.
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is My Car's Shop.
I thought I would start out by talking about a couple of things that I think you'll find very helpful when it comes to what you're working on. I think the biggest mistake any of us make when it comes to building things, especially when you're fabricating, is being in too big of a hurry. Now, if you go back to the beginnings of this project, apart from when I was banging the roof back out way back in the beginning after I bought it in 2019, really didn't start on this car until November 24th of 2020. So it's been a year and some change that we've been working on this car. Slow and steady wins the race. We built the frame rails, we built the trunk floor support, we built the trunk extension, fixed the wheel well on the driver's side. We've done a lot of things by hand. And the one thing I know is once you build something, for one thing, I tack it into place. If you'll notice, I haven't finished welding the frame rails in, if you remember that, if you've been around for a while. You just want time to be sure that everything is right, that you're not missing something. So after the last episode, when we worked on this car, I thought we had everything really in good shape, and we certainly have it in a lot better shape. If you remember, this was twisted like this, and there was problems. I think everything over here is pretty good, although I still feel like this trunk or this bumperette may be sticking out a bit far. I've looked at a lot of pictures. Hopefully after the previous episode comes out, some of you will drop comments about that, what you know, for those of you that own these E-bodies. One thing I noticed is on this side, on this one right there, there's a problem that I didn't see until about 2 days ago. So let's get over there and I'll show you what I found. I'm not really happy with the way that's like that, but I know I can fix that so that it fits a little tighter to the bumper. So that's just a stack up issue and so forth. And you'll notice that the bumperette is really parallel in its plane to the rear valance. So that one looks good overall, a little tweaking, but not worried about it. What I didn't notice was this one does not match the plane. Look at how that comes down like that. So that's a problem, and I think that's directly related to the way that it's bolting on to that bracket that goes to the bottom of the frame. Now, some of you may question whether or not the frame rate was installed in the wrong location, and I can promise you it wasn't. And the reason I know that is because the rear frame horn with the bumper mount on the back, I never took out. I left that in the car on purpose so that everything was back in its proper location. I can tell that the back of the car is not smushed up here because look at how nicely the bumper lines up. Everything is good. So it's not like the bumper is sucked in here versus on the other end, everything looks relatively close. So the rear frame horn is perfect, well, within spec at least. Visually it looks good. So the issue is somehow the way that these bumperettes bolt onto this bumper. We got to figure that out. So that's probably the place we're going to start. I need to get this resolved so that it's not. Sometimes I think I show too much detail, but I also want you to have a realistic perspective on doing one of these cars from beginning to end, which is why I started with the very beginning of this car. There's almost nothing I do on this car that's not on the show here somewhere. So for the 7,362nd time, I need to take this rear valance off to work on this bracket over here for this rear bumperette to try to get that straightened out. We may go ahead and get this one straightened out while we're at it, but I want everything to be good there so that I can do the final fitment on this rear valance. So, having said all of that, it just occurred to me that it may not be bumperette. As I was looking at it, I realized this could be off. I don't think it is. I need to pull a couple dimensions from bottom corner up to a known point on the frame and do the same thing over to this one, just to be sure that this isn't like that. I don't think it is, because that doesn't make sense to me. I also need to do some dimensioning down, but I can't measure to this floor because this floor is so. But I'm looking at this, and I really think it's in the bumperette itself, but I want to be sure. One thing that's a little side note that I wanted to mention, I've spent a fair bit of time in the last little while, as you can tell, just doing some organizing in the shop. I've struggled with the workflow. I've never really spent the time here in the 11 years that we've been here to actually work on the workflow of the shop. And being a business owner, I'm always thinking about workflows. So I spent some time thinking about that, and I'll share with you what I did and explain my rationale. So I'm going to flip you around and we're going to head over to the other corner in the shop. One of the things that I am big on is needing accessibility to things, and I'm visual. And the problem is when things are in my toolbox, I don't always keep track of things, and it's real easy for things to get out of control. That's just a personality thing. And if you look into organizational skills, there are different types of personalities when it comes to organizing. So what I've always found worked well in the past was to have a tool board like this with some of the basic stuff. I don't have anything fancy on there. It's just standard tools, but the basic stuff that I use every day, there's a few things I may add. And then at a glance, I know if something's missing, I can go looking for it right away. You would think in the toolbox drawer with the wrench organizers I have, it would be that easy. But again, it's part of learning to accept yourself for who you are. It's a personality thing. So I spent 2 days out here when it was just so bitter cold working on stuff like this. I posted pictures on different places, but I hadn't talked about it on the channel. So if you'd like me to talk more about my thinking when it comes to shop organization, which kind of sounds like the sinner talking about how not to sin, but anyway, I'll share more with you if you're interested. I just wanted to give you that little segment. So I'm walking over here right now to just grab some tools to take over to the car so I can work on it, and it'll be real easy to know when I'm done, make sure everything's back on the board and it's easy. I don't work well like that with closed drawers. I'm very visual, and I have to see things in order to know. Some metal embedded in my floor mat here. I need to get that out of there while I'm seeing it, take care of it. Otherwise, you know what's going to happen? We're going to be taking another trip to the hospital because I cut myself. We're going to pull this off and see what the deal is, why it's like that. I've got some ideas what we can do, but I did, as I mentioned, I think I said, I checked all the dimensions on the valance, and everything is pretty square. Apparently I'm missing a socket off of this set. Yep, I'm missing a 1/2 inch. That's ironic. All this time I thought I was missing a 9/16, so I put a new 9/16 on when really I'm missing my 1/2 inch. Oh, I must have been tired that day. Anyway, no problem. I have a shallow well. All right, let's see what's going on here. It's just a lot of pressure on that, and I'm not sure why. It's probably only off 3/16 of an inch. I spent a ton of time off camera figuring out what was going on. I still feel like the gap between here and here isn't right, but I measure everything and everything appears to be good. It's not like it's sucking in a lot here. Could come that way just a little bit, but I think we're going to have to go with it. For my own sense of aesthetics, it would be very easy for me just to make a little shroud that goes in here, but I don't know. But I think overall it's looking pretty good now. So I'm not disappointed with the way that's turning out. We're lining up decent over here. So I think our next step is, well, first of all, I need to, I put some shims between this and the bracket to keep that from twisting, and then rearrange things and straighten things out so that this is no longer pulling away from the bumper. So I need to do the same thing over here. The problem I have is this bolt right there is rusted in, and I don't want to break it off if I don't have to. I mean, I can. So what I need to do is get out the blue wrench and heat that thing up to about 25,000 degrees without melting it, and then put a wrench on it and just get that apart. So the key to getting out a bolt that won't come out is not to heat up the bracket, it's not to heat up the bolt, but the cage nut that's back here. So that's what we're going to attempt. I'll get my torch out and we'll get down in there carefully with low heat and just heat that thing up. We'll have a socket on here and we'll put a wrench on it and a little bit when that gets hot, and hopefully it'll come out of there. Just have to make sure I don't touch it. Might need to change the tip on this. This hose, or this tip is just a little bit more pencil-like than I want, but we're going to try it. Actually, that's working really well because the heat is concentrated down in there. I wish I could show you what I'm doing in here, but I think you'll get it. I can't actually. Hold on. Got you with a good view there now. Yep, you can see me. I'm just putting that pencil heat right down on that nut, and then once I get it in there, I'm going to go ahead and turn that heat up a little bit. We want to get that nut cherry red before we start putting any twist on this socket. And of course, I just realized that my ratchet isn't right here, so I will have to heat this up, go grab the ratchet, and come back. But that's okay. All right, we're back. We got the ratchet on there. We're gonna heat that back up cherry red again. And that's hot enough. There she goes. And that's how you keep from breaking off a bolt. We got stuff burning inside of there, but okay. So we got obviously an issue. I can't hold this. I don't have enough hands. Hold it with my hand. There we go. We're good. Ouch. Don't get too close to that. A little dab will do you when it comes to heat. The thing about heat is it's a finesse thing. You can't go charging into it with a squirt gun and hand grenades like you're charging into hell and you're just going to put out the fires of hell. It's a very finesse thing. You want to get it cherry red, but the problem is in a situation like that, you need to be very concentrated, and using that small tip, it takes a while, so you can't be impatient. You can't expect that I'm going to put heat on that and it'll become loose in 30 seconds. So get it cherry red, take your time, make sure you're not melting stuff around it, and just put a little steady pressure on that wrench like I did, and once that nut starts to glow cherry red, it should come loose easily. Another thing about doing that, you want to keep it red. So many times when I've done this myself, when you heat something up cherry red and then you think it's good because it's coming loose, you take the heat off and then it gets bound up, but you think it's going to go, so you end up snapping it off anyway. So you got to keep that red. The third thing, or the fourth thing, or something, propane torch won't probably get it hot enough. It requires oxyacetylene. I don't think you can get a propane torch to get a nut like that as cherry red as it needs to be. I'm not saying don't try it, but in my experience, I've mucked around with it a lot using a propane torch, and generally it just doesn't get things hot enough. So unfortunately, you need to have an oxyacetylene setup to be able to do that. If your experience is different than mine, drop it down there in the comments, but remember that what I'm sharing here with you is not the right way to do things. It's the way that I do things, and it's what I've learned by experience. Another side note, if you do get an oxyacetylene, and I've had this for 30 years probably, get a really long hose. I don't like moving this thing around in the shop because it's awkward and it's too easy to scratch a car going by. So I've got a hose that reaches from here all the way across the shop over there to my bench. That's about the limit. It was almost a little bit too short, but don't be afraid to get a good long hose. That's important so that you don't have to move your tank around unless you absolutely need to. finish the fitment on this end, we've got to hammer and dolly this back into shape. This is distorted, so it's causing it not to fit properly against the fender. And then there's a tab missing here that we'll take care of when we put this new bottom piece on. I think that's it. Everything else looks good. So we'll dolly this in place. And then up in here, I've already done some hammer and dolly work here. You can see it, okay. But we need to put a tab in here. So I got to go to the other side and see where that is. And this isn't fitting exactly right. So we've got to do a little stuff in there. So here's what we have. We're a little bit tight right in here. I've got to figure that out. I did a dimension check from here down to here, and it's the same on both sides, 8.5 inches. So our quarter panel is exactly in the right spot. I think some of this is because we're not nestled in here. So this quarter panel is out probably 1/4 of an inch from where it should be. So I think I'm going to pop the quarter off and see what this looks like under here, because I don't remember, and maybe we need to trim back a little bit more. I don't know. We got to just see what we got to do. So I'm also curious if I left this piece in here underneath. I don't think I did, but this is all part of it. Sometimes it's just so hard to get all these stack ups right, because you have to look at so many things from so many different perspectives. So we're about a finger width between here and here, which is right. This line is coming up. I think the issue is because it's double stacked. It's out too far here and not pulling in. So that'll take care of itself when we flange it. I don't think that's affecting us down here at all in getting this lined up. So I'm gonna leave this Cleco out for now and just kind of let things fall into place a little bit better. Wouldn't hurt if I trimmed back in here a little bit maybe, but I don't want to get too carried away. I don't think we're gonna have an alignment issue here once that's in place, and if we do, it certainly will not be a problem to jump in there, buzz this out, and move this around and weld it back up again if we have to. But I don't think that's necessary. I think it's more that this is just because of this piece that I'm going to be welding to. There's nothing behind this in here, but there's this piece here which is pushing this top out. I think that's why this is like this. So got about a knuckle width on the down here. We're going to go check that on the other side. Finger width I already checked and it's right. So I've been spending quite a bit of time here massaging this. This edge in here was still off, so I took my vice grips and just kind of squeezed it down to get things kind of lined up a little bit better. Got one spot right there I'm still not comfortable with. So it's starting to line up better now. The curvature is a little different. We may have to a little bit like that. The biggest thing is right in here it's hitting, and I had to make a decision on where I was going to make the modification. And I think I'm just going to grind this little top corner out. You have to remember that we have a really crappy piece of aftermarket material that we're putting on here. We have an amazing piece of hand fabricated trunk extension behind it, and we have a collision damaged, forklift damaged, or whatever damaged rear valance. So This is kind of the nature of this stuff when you're doing this collision fabrication stuff. You got to kind of do what you got to do to make stuff fit. The important thing is that this body line here comes on around and continues on here. And I think once I have this cut a little bit more, and I may need to do a little trimming in here, I think it's going to pull in there okay. I'm just trying to make the decision on the best place to do the work. It's tough. I think I'm going to grind it. Actually, the more I'm looking at this, I'm going to grind it here a little bit. I'm going to grind it here a little bit and just get that to nestle in. Once that's done, we'll know where this upper tab goes, and we can get that tab in there to put that bolt in. The other thing is this panel is a little bit kinked right in here, so we'll need to dunk that out a little bit and get it to fit. But I got to get the top fitting properly first. So we'll go get the grinder, work on both of these spots a little bit. It's getting a lot better. I've determined that I don't think it's this that's bent. I think this isn't bent enough. So in the process of all of this, a couple things I discovered, which is making sense. The bumper, I think, is over this way, that way, this way, a little bit, like maybe 3/16 of an inch. I'm judging that based upon what I'm seeing here, the way this comes up and lines up there. And this one appears to me to be just a little bit, well, maybe not. It's really hard to tell. No, I think it's pretty good. Let's check it again. It's pretty good. Yeah, okay. I thought the bumper was over a little bit, but it's not. It's not. I can't get the quarter panel off because the bumper's holding it on. So it's a whole series of things that need to happen here. But I think I'm going to go ahead and I can make the adjustment on this when I hang the quarter panel. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get this finished up and then get this done down here. And I think we'll feel pretty comfortable that this is going to line up. I may take this quarter panel and put it on the shrinker and just see if I can add a little more curve in here. I may not. I may just rebuild this here to fit that. I need to ponder it. So it's way past lunchtime and I'm about starving to death, and as usual for me, I get caught up in this stuff and lose track of time. So it's looking pretty good. I'm not uncomfortable with it. I'm getting it to a point where I feel, let's see, when you look at the license plate here and this doesn't line up, so I'm gonna figure that out. The valance over a little bit. That kind of indicates that the bumper may be shifted a little bit to the left. This stuff will just drive you nuts, you know? It's probably the valance is a little bit right and the bumper is a little bit left. Guess I'll have to find exact center because the keyhole here I thought was centered and it's not. It's off a little bit. So I've got to determine exact center on that rear opening. So when you're doing cut and butt, remember that you're overlapping it, tack welding it, going back and cutting it at a 45-degree angle or so. and then cutting it through and then welding it back, and then you'll be able to peel the piece off the back. And for the most part, you've got a nice little flush weld there. It's off just a little bit in one spot, but this thing is pretty beat up, so I need to do a little hammer and dolly work on this before I go any further to get it a little bit straightened out, and then we'll go ahead and finish welding. But it's got a little low spot right in here, and I need to go a little further with that before we weld this up. Plus, I don't think I quite have my curvature right. I can tell I don't, so I need to work on that just a little bit. But we're getting close with it, and not sharing all the nitty-gritty dirt band with you because I've already done this once. There's an episode where it's a little bit more in-depth on what I did here, but actually this is coming together quite nicely now. Gotta remember how I finished this out here on that side because I don't exactly remember, but we'll duplicate what I did down there, down here, and I gotta do the same thing in here also. Get this trimmed down, so we're getting there, getting close. So I did a little cut, and I got my dimension the same in here. I can bring that together, so looking good. We'll get that welded up, and that part will be done. I got a piece of scrap on the back side I got to deal with yet, but I want to tack this a little bit so it's all there, and then we'll deal with that piece on the back side. Gone around, welded everything. Things are starting to flow together pretty well. So we're gonna go ahead and grind it. There's still a little work to do in here. There's still a little work to do in there on that side too, but things are starting to look pretty good. Just wanna grind this up. This is just a little bit, I'm not sure why it did that, but it did. So I will get, well, let's just do it right now. Let's see if we can get it straightened out. It's kind of, just a little. Just not sure why it's doing that, but it is. So we'll fix that. For some reason it buckled, so I put a little pie slice in here. May need to do another one, but we'll get that one welded up and we'll get all this ground down and see where it goes. But I think it's close. I gotta remember that this is way under the car, so it does not have to be perfect for a car like Stitches, but I want it to be good that anybody that looks at it won't know this is done, even if I look at it and go, that's about a 1/16 of an inch off. I'm good with that because nobody else will see it. It's like what we said on Joe's Charger. There's 2 flies in the paint, and if you can find them, good luck to you. We'll buy you a beer. So I went over it with that grinder with the hard stone. Now we'll take my pneumatic with more of the sanding disc and take it to the next level. So I try to just do the aggressive stuff with that and then get a little more fine-tuned with the pneumatic one. It's all green and just sitting down here in front of the furnace, drying down there, and that will go back on the car here in a bit. There's just one spot that I need to trim on the one end where I bent that around. It's not quite crisp enough on the hammer and dolly. I'm not worried about that right now, but I need to get that bent and cut where that tab goes for screwing it to the car, and then once that's done, things will be in good shape. I screwed up on two things. I didn't make this right down here. I didn't compare it to that one. So I need to fix that, which is a simple fix. I just need to nip this off and get in a little bit. So, and that's part of the reason this isn't formed properly in here is because it's too this way. It needs to be scooped under. So no big deal there. Pie slice here, push it up, get that line right, and good to go. And then the other place I screwed up was out here. I had bent the bottom around and it wasn't fitting at all. And the way this quarter panel is inside of here, it's not like the other side where I can put a tab yet. I need to do some work. So I decided to just go ahead and that off of there for now, and I'll just weld a new piece on there when it's time to do the tab. But the angle's not right anymore, and it's not stacking up properly. So it's not going to be a big deal to fix that, but I'm not doing that now. However, everything else up in here now is fitting like a glove. And I did determine that the bumper itself is this way about a 1/4 inch or a little bit less than too far. So I'll show you how I evidence that very easily. Two ways. One, if I go down here and feel that, it hits the top of the bumper instead of flowing right around, the other side flows right around. So it needs to go that way a little bit. And then the other place I figured it out, as you can see it right here in the valance pan to that, it's the bumper is this way. The valance pan I feel is pretty lined up, and another way that I could tell was the spacing on those bumperettes. If both sides are pretty equidistant to the bumper being too far to the left, to the driver's side. So when we move that back over where it should be, I think we're going to be good. However, I don't know that I need to do that for the purposes of what we're trying to accomplish now. I feel at this point where we're at, we should be able to get everything lined up without a problem. So that's the direction we're going to go. I may get a wild hair and just decide to go ahead and bump that bumper over, but it's quite an involved process to do that, and I don't know if I feel like mucking with it, but we'll sleep on it and see what happens. Things always take longer than I expect, but it's still good progress. We got the other side of the valance done. We got a bunch of fitment issues taken care of over against that quarter panel. There's a little more to do, and there's some tips and tricks I'll show you. I may just go ahead and the whole end of that off and make it new to match that quarter panel, because things are just a little bit weird with that cheap crap panel over there, but it's still big progress. Things are fitting pretty good. Fits against the quarter panel over here decently. Again, that bottom end, the bumper needs to come over, and the more I think about it, the more I might just go ahead and get that done here in the next couple of days. As you know, we really try to share step by step what it takes, which makes, you know, for a long drawn out series, but you'll get a good feel from all that we do about what it takes to take a junkyard pile car that's rotted from here all the way back and have to build everything by hand and replace everything and so forth. Of course, had we just bought frame rails, we would have saved some time, but not as much as you might think. But again, as you know, it's not about the time, it's about the work. It's about the shutting the world out and coming out here. And even though today I kept getting interrupted with drama from my job, from work, from the company I own, still, you know, turn the welder back on, get back after it, and that's what matters. The key word is check, check, and recheck to make sure that everything is fitting. Because once it's in, it's in. I mean, you can cut it back out, but you don't want to get it all painted and go, ooh, that's off. So that's the name of the game here in getting a really good quality job on a project like this. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. I'm pretty much out of time. Thank you for spending the afternoon with me. It's been a good day, and just feel like I've moved another little nibble forward in eating this elephant we call stitches. All right, you can find us on the Face thing. Instagram has us listed also /mycarshop. Oh yeah, don't forget,